Hello, I'm Sakiz, and today I'm going to tell you about something that will make you question every environmental device in your home. What happens when the technology designed to monitor the air you breathe becomes the very thing that poisons it? This is the terrifying story of Dr. Emily Martinez, an environmental scientist who discovered that air quality sensors weren't just monitoring pollution, they were creating it. Her investigation revealed a conspiracy so twisted that it turned our growing environmental consciousness against us, using our desire for clean air as a weapon to slowly destroy our health. This isn't just about malfunctioning devices. This is about how corporate greed can weaponize our environmental concerns, turning the very tools we trust to protect our families into instruments of mass poisoning. And the most horrifying part? The victims never suspect the devices that promise to keep them safe. Are you ready to discover what might be hiding in the air you're breathing right now? Let's begin. Dr. Emily Martinez had dedicated her life to environmental health. As a 34-year-old atmospheric chemist working for the Portland Environmental Protection Agency, she specialized in air quality monitoring and had authored several papers on the health impacts of indoor air pollution. In the fall of 2024, Emily was contacted by concerned residents from 3 different neighborhoods across Portland. All were reporting the same unusual pattern. Despite having recently installed high-end air quality monitoring systems, family members were experiencing unexplained respiratory issues, chronic headaches, and persistent fatigue. The strange thing is, explained Margaret Thompson, a mother from the Hawthorne district during their initial phone consultation, our AirMax Pro sensor always shows excellent air quality readings. Green lights across the board. But my kids have developed asthma symptoms they never had before. Emily had heard similar concerns from the Alberta Arts and Pearl District neighborhoods. In each case, families had installed AirMax Pro sensors from Atmos Industries, a company that marketed itself as the premium solution for health-conscious households worried about air pollution. The AirMax Pro wasn't just a simple air monitor, it was an intelligent environmental system that promised to detect over 200 different pollutants, particles, and toxins. The marketing emphasized its ability to protect families from everything from wildfire smoke to chemical emissions, making it particularly appealing to Portland's environmentally conscious residents. Emily decided to investigate personally. She purchased an AirMax Pro for her own home lab and began running parallel tests with her professional-grade equipment. What she discovered in the first week was puzzling. While her laboratory instruments detected normal baseline readings, the AirMax Pro consistently reported superior air quality, readings that seemed almost too good to be true. Most environmental sensors showed natural variation in air quality throughout the day and night. The AirMax Pro showed an unnaturally consistent pattern of optimal readings, regardless of external factors like traffic, weather, or even Emily's deliberate introduction of common pollutants. Something's wrong with the calibration, Emily initially thought. But as she dug deeper into the device's technical specifications and compared them with industry standards, she began to suspect something far more sinister than mere manufacturing defects. The AirMax Pro was either completely non-functional as an air quality monitor, or it was intentionally designed to hide something from its users. Emily's investigation took a disturbing turn when she began examining the actual air composition in homes with AirMax Pro sensors. Using specialized sampling equipment, she collected air samples from 5 different households, all of which had reported health issues despite excellent air quality readings from their monitors. The results were shocking. Every home showed elevated levels of compounds that should have triggered immediate warnings on any legitimate air quality sensor: benzene derivatives, volatile organic compounds, and trace amounts of industrial solvents that had no business being in residential environments. Most alarming were the presence of compounds Emily didn't initially recognize, synthetic chemicals that didn't match any standard pollutant databases. When she sent samples to the university's advanced chemistry lab, the results made her blood run cold. The unknown compounds were organophosphates, chemicals primarily used in pesticides and nerve agents, but modified in ways that made them harder to detect and longer lasting in enclosed environments. These weren't accidental contamination or industrial pollution. These were deliberate chemical introductions. Emily contacted Atmos Industries directly, requesting technical specifications and calibration data for the AirMax Pro. The customer service representative, David Chen, was evasive and unhelpful. "Our sensors are calibrated to the highest industry standards," Chen explained in a rehearsed tone. "If customers are experiencing health issues, they should consult medical professionals rather than questioning our technology." When Emily identified herself as an EPA scientist and requested detailed chemical detection ranges, Chen became defensive. "Our proprietary technology is protected by trade secrets. We can't share technical specifications with outside parties, even government agencies." This response raised immediate red flags. Legitimate environmental monitoring companies typically welcomed government scrutiny and were proud to share their detection capabilities. Atmos-Tech's secrecy suggested they had something to hide. Emily decided to take apart an AirMax Pro sensor to examine its internal components. What she found inside made her realize she wasn't dealing with defective equipment, she was looking at a sophisticated deception device designed to hide its true function while slowly poisoning the families who trusted it. The AirMax Pro's internal structure was unlike any legitimate air quality sensor Emily had ever examined. While the device did contain basic environmental sensors, they were intentionally miscalibrated to always show favorable readings regardless of actual air conditions. More disturbing was what Emily found in the device's central chamber, a small but sophisticated chemical delivery system. Hidden behind the device's air intake fans was a microscopic dispersal mechanism that released tiny amounts of synthetic compounds into the surrounding air. The chemicals were stored in what appeared to be standard electronic components, but closer examination revealed they were hollow containers filled with slow-release formulations of the same organophosphates Emily had detected in the air samples. The AirMax Pro wasn't monitoring air quality, it was systematically degrading it while lying about the results. Emily immediately contacted her supervisor at the EPA, Dr. James Morrison, with her findings. His response was immediate and alarming: "Emily, you need to document everything and prepare for a federal investigation. What you're describing isn't product defect, it's bioterrorism." Working with EPA forensic specialists, Emily expanded her investigation to include the broader distribution of AirMax Pro devices. What they discovered was a carefully orchestrated campaign of environmental terrorism disguised as consumer health technology. Atmos-Tech Industries had specifically targeted environmentally conscious communities across the Pacific Northwest. They marketed heavily to families with children, elderly residents, and individuals with pre-existing respiratory conditions, exactly the populations most vulnerable to long-term chemical exposure. The chemical delivery system was designed to operate below the threshold of immediate detection while gradually building up toxic concentrations in enclosed spaces. Victims would experience slowly developing health issues that could easily be attributed to other environmental factors, age, or lifestyle choices. Most insidiously, the false air quality readings prevented victims from taking protective action. Instead of investigating poor indoor air quality, families trusted their sensors and remained in contaminated environments, continuing to breathe poisoned air for months or years. Emily's investigation led to a shocking discovery about Atmos-Tech Industries' true nature and motivations. The company wasn't a legitimate environmental technology firm, it was a front organization for a pharmaceutical corporation conducting illegal human experimentation. Atmos-Tech was a subsidiary of ChemGenesis Pharmaceuticals, a company with a history of questionable research practices and regulatory violations. Internal documents obtained through EPA subpoenas revealed that the AirMax Pro project was part of a study called Project Atmosphere, a long-term analysis of human responses to controlled chemical exposure. Dr. Sarah Chen, ChemGenesis's research director, had developed the AirMax Pro system as a way to conduct widespread human toxicology testing without the ethical constraints of traditional clinical trials. By disguising chemical delivery systems as environmental monitors, the company could expose thousands of people to experimental compounds while maintaining plausible deniability. The organophosphates being released weren't just toxic, they were experimental neurological agents designed to study the long-term effects of low-level chemical warfare compounds on civilian populations. ChemGenesis was essentially using American families as unwitting test subjects in chemical weapons research. Emily discovered that over 12,000 AirMax Pro devices had been sold across Oregon, Washington, and Northern California. Each device was programmed to release slightly different chemical formulations, allowing researchers to compare the effectiveness of various compounds across different demographic groups. The company had been collecting health data on affected families through seemingly innocent customer surveys, warranty registrations, and voluntary health monitoring programs that many customers had opted into when purchasing their devices. ChemGenesis was building a comprehensive database of human responses to chemical warfare agents while simultaneously poisoning the very people who had trusted them to protect their family's health. When Emily tried to contact affected families directly, she discovered that Atmos Tech had included non-disclosure agreements in their warranty terms, legally preventing customers from discussing their experiences with the devices or any health issues they might experience. When Emily's initial EPA report began circulating within the federal environmental and health agencies, Atmos Tech Industries launched an aggressive campaign to discredit her findings and prevent further investigation. The company hired a team of lawyers and public relations specialists to challenge Emily's credentials, question her methodology, and suggest that her results were contaminated or misinterpreted. They claimed that the chemical compounds she detected were common household substances that had been misidentified due to faulty testing procedures. More concerning was the personal pressure Emily began facing. Her supervisor, Dr. Morrison, was suddenly reassigned to a different department. Emily's access to EPA laboratory facilities was restricted pending a routine security review. Her research funding was frozen due to budgetary concerns. Emily realized that Atmos Tech had significant political and financial influence within the regulatory agencies that were supposed to protect public health. The company was using its connections to bury the investigation before it could expose the full scope of their criminal operation. But Emily had anticipated this response. Before her initial report, she had secretly documented everything and shared copies of her evidence with investigative journalists, environmental advocacy groups, and international health organizations. She also discovered she wasn't the only scientist who had noticed problems with Atmos Tech devices. Dr. Maria Santos, a toxicologist in Seattle, had independently identified similar chemical signatures in homes with AirMax Pro sensors. Dr. Robert Kim in Sacramento had documented unusual respiratory illness patterns that correlated with Atmos Tech device installations. Working together, the three scientists built an overwhelming case against Atmos Tech Industries. They documented not just the chemical delivery systems, but also the company's deliberate targeting of vulnerable populations and their systematic collection of health data from poisoned families. Most damning was their discovery that Atmos Tech had known about adverse health effects in their early test markets but had continued expanding their distribution while modifying their chemical formulations to be more difficult to detect. Emily's coalition of scientists decided to bypass the compromised regulatory agencies and take their evidence directly to the public. Working with investigative journalist Lisa Park from the Portland Tribune, they prepared a comprehensive exposé of Project Atmosphere and Atmos Tech's criminal operations. The story broke simultaneously across multiple news outlets, social media platforms, and international health organization websites. The evidence was so overwhelming that Atmos Tech couldn't suppress or discredit it through their usual legal and political channels. Public reaction was immediate and furious. Families who had trusted Atmos Tech to protect their children discovered they had been slowly poisoning them for months or years. Environmental groups that had endorsed the AirMax Pro as a health-conscious consumer choice found themselves inadvertently complicit in a mass poisoning scheme. The FBI raided Atmos Tech Industries and ChemGenesis Pharmaceuticals simultaneously, seizing thousands of documents and arresting key executives including Dr. Sarah Chen and company CEO Michael Roberts. The investigation revealed that Project Atmosphere was even more extensive than Emily had initially discovered. The companies had been conducting similar operations in 12 states, with over 15,000 families exposed to experimental chemical compounds. The health data they had collected was being sold to military contractors and foreign governments interested in chemical warfare research. Emily's investigation led to the largest environmental crime prosecution in U.S. history. Dr. Sarah Chen was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison for conspiracy to commit mass poisoning and conducting illegal human experimentation. CEO Michael Roberts received a 30-year sentence for bioterrorism and corporate fraud. The families affected by Project Atmosphere received a $2.3 billion settlement, though many continued to suffer long-term health effects from their chemical exposure. Emily worked with health officials to develop treatment protocols for organophosphate poisoning and monitoring programs for affected children. Most importantly, Emily's investigation led to sweeping reforms in environmental technology regulation. New laws required complete transparency in air quality monitoring devices, mandatory third-party testing of environmental sensors, and criminal penalties for companies that deliberately expose consumers to toxic substances. Atmos Industries was permanently shut down, and all AirMax Pro devices were recalled and destroyed. But the damage had been done. Thousands of families had been used as unwitting test subjects in one of the most sophisticated corporate poisoning schemes in modern history. Dr. Emily Martinez continues her work as an environmental scientist, but her focus has shifted to detecting and preventing corporate environmental crimes. Her experience with Atmos taught her that the greatest threats to public health often come disguised as solutions. The AirMax Pro case revealed a terrifying vulnerability in our increasingly technology-dependent lives. Our trust in environmental monitoring devices can be exploited by those who would use our health consciousness against us. Emily's story reminds us that environmental protection isn't just about monitoring pollution, it's about monitoring the monitors. In our rush to protect ourselves from environmental threats, we must remain vigilant about who we trust to guard our health and why. The next time you see an environmental monitoring device promising perfect air quality readings, remember the families who trusted Atmos. The most dangerous pollution is often the kind you can't see, can't smell, and never suspect, especially when it's coming from the device that's supposed to protect you from it. Trust your instincts. Verify your devices. And remember, in our environmentally conscious world, the greatest threats often come wrapped in promises of protection. Clean air shouldn't come with a hidden cost. Your home should be your sanctuary, not a laboratory. And the technology you invite in to protect your family should never become the thing that slowly destroys their health. Stay vigilant, verify everything, and never forget that the most sophisticated predators often disguise themselves as protectors.